We would invite all who would care to join us in the recitation of the Lord's Prayer, followed by a moment of silence. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
It's now 7 o'clock. Shall the City Council meeting is called to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated, please. Roll call, please, Mr. Crum.
Mr. Robb.
Here.
Mr. Roberts.
Here.
Mr. Gates.
Here.
Mr. Martin.
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin. Here.
We have a full house here this evening. We'll now entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal from April the 3rd, 2023.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Gates to dispense with the reading of the journal from April 3rd, 2023. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Robb.
Yay.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
That motion passes. We now come to the time for public comment. And in the gallery, Ms. Scriven is here to present from the Economic Development Manager's position the housing study is conducted across Richmond County with specifics for the city of Shelby. So, Ms. Scriven, the floor is yours.
Thank you. As Mayor said, Jessica Gooden, Mark Fax, Mark Road. Okay. First of all, thank you all for being a part of this plan. It was a countywide housing study, and all of our cities and most of the villages chipped in on the plan. Everybody kind of had a part in it. Everyone saw the value in it, and I appreciate that. And hopefully you'll see, as I kind of go through this, some of the data. I think a lot of it are things that we already knew, but we needed to see it in front of us. And then further, and most importantly, we had strategy that came out of it. So that the plan is to take this plan and work it. So the steering committee that came together, which was, again, a variety of people looking at housing from a variety of lenses. Mine, of course, is economic development, how to move the needle. We know that houses are where people go, or where employees go to sleep at night. And that's how I was looking at it. We are looking to holistically make this community better and make it appealing. So that is the plan. So I'll just jump right in, and I'll try and move through this quickly. There's a lot of slides, but we won't belabor it. So Joe, if you want to move forward, that's the reservoir. Also hanging in my office. So the plan. Go ahead, go to the next one. The process of the plan took about a year. We kicked off in April of last year, so appropriately I'm here in April of this year to kind of go over it with you. And we went through all of this process, which really the important thing for you to know is we got a ton of community input. We had focus groups. We brought in everybody who touched housing in really any meaningful way, whether it was in a focus group initially with our consultant, or at the end we kind of dove into strategy, and we had all the players at the table. So from realtors, developers, our social service agencies, anyone who was interested in housing got an opportunity to weigh in on the study. And then if we go to the next slide, you have to click through to bring it up. We really broke housing into 3 categories. So there should be 3. There you go. Affordable, attainable, and market rate. And what that means is affordable, as you see see there is 80% AMI, or adjusted median income, 41,550 for one person, or 59,300 for a family of four. Those incomes fall into that affordable bucket. And we tried to pull out what does that mean for Richland County. So potentially it could be somebody who's receiving disability, a cashier, or an entry-level worker, social worker. Those would likely fall into that bucket. Then we have our attainable bucket, which is going to be 80 to 120% AMI. That's 62, 280 for one person or below, down to that 41, and then 88, 920 for a family of four. So a lot of folks fall into this attainable bucket. Looking at maybe a nurse or entry-level police officer, delivery driver, etc. And then market rate, which really goes, anything above that is pretty much in our market rate category. So those were the three kind of buckets we looked at as we went through the housing process. Next slide. We also broke it into nodes. So again, when I came to you, I talked to you about needing a countywide study, and I think that was the right approach. But we also wanted to get specific. So we broke it into our nodes, which were our largest cities, Mansfield, Shelby, and Ontario, and then Belleville and Lexington also contributed to the study and were significant enough to weigh in. Then we kind of broke everybody else into either urban or rural townships. And that seemed to make sense based on the commonalities that they had. All right, so next slide, we'll talk about the SWOT analysis. This should be a full circle, Joe. Sorry, it's cool. So it just goes through our strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats. And again, a lot of the stuff we already know. I don't think there's anything surprising in it. And I'll send you this slide deck, as well as the full report for the county and then Shelby's report. But obviously, strengths, community pride. We have a very livable community. It's affordable. We have a diversity of communities within the county, so everybody's a little bit different and offers some different things. And then there's positive momentum, which I'm proud to say that Shelby is a big part of that. Weaknesses, we have some challenges with quality, shrinking attainable housing market, which we'll get to. Contractors and developers outside of Richland County don't pay us a whole lot of attention. There's reasons for that. And then bureaucracy of permitting and codes, and I'll add zoning in there too, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then threats, needing to seize the moment and making sure we are adequately strategizing how we carry out housing in a positive way. Competition with surrounding counties and surrounding areas, and being able to think creatively and have dynamic leadership that can pull us through this process. Opportunities, existing community investments, economic development pipeline, and obviously there's a lot going on in Ohio, Intel being the one that everybody's talking about, but there's certainly significant other mega projects that we are touching on. The next one has a whole bunch of clicking, Joe. So Richland County housing inventory, 67% of households own their own home in Richland County. The highest being Ontario at 79% home ownership, and the rural townships are the same. Lowest home ownership is in Mansfield at 51%, and Shelby is at 58%, which the next slide will talk about that a little bit further. 73% of housing units are single unit detached, so single family homes. 2,000 plus homes in mobile homes in Richland County, which I thought was interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that statistic. And then housing stock age. So 45% of our houses are built before 1960, and it's actually probably skews older in Shelby specifically. And then vacant residential units. Actually, that number is 4.1% of the county's total residential units. It's not very high, and the land bank has had a lot to do with that number being lower. So you can go to the next slide. So as we were talking about Shelby, it's hard to see this on this slide, but so in that green area, that census tract 26, 45% of homes in that census tract are owner occupied, which is quite a low number. Outside of that, if you go north, 70% in that census tract, I don't remember what numbers they are, but 70% are owner occupied, or just below that 71%, and then to your east is 79% owner occupied. So that census tract 26 is why Shelby skews to the lower end of home ownership. So summing it up, there should be 4 bullet points on this one. Our population is rapidly aging. Our housing stock is older. We have a substantial number of mobile homes, especially in unincorporated areas. It's just something to be, cognizant of. And then while vacancies are high, they have decreased substantially since the Great Recession. I would argue that vacancies are probably not that high. That's based on a post office number, and like if they don't have mail picked up in 30 days, they go on vacant list. So some of that's snowbirds and things like that. All right, so market analysis. Move 2 slides down. Residential permits file. This slide is really interesting, and you'll have to click them all up. There should be 6. So these are all the permits filed. This goes back to 2002, but I will note that Mansfield does not have data available before 2011, so that's why it shows 0. And then for Shelby's numbers, since 2001, we've had 38 residential permits issued in Shelby. 31 are single-family homes, 2 are 2 units, and then 5 are multifamily. And since 2010, everything in Shelby has been single-family. So if you see in 2002, there were quite a few permits issued. Then the Great Recession happened, and we built nothing. And then we're slowly kind of creeping back up to more, but still nowhere near that 2002 number. So the next slide you'll see is just Shelby specific. I'm sorry, this is Richland County permits again. It's just a different way of looking at it. So this is just showing you the same information in a different graph, but shows you the rural townships are obviously where most of our development happens, which again was a need for this study. Because most of the development is happening outside of municipalities, and it's really single-family, one-off lots, large lots, etc. So, just an interesting fact. And then sales by market tier. So this is our lower, middle, upper, third, and then condos. So you'll see kind of that slow, steady increase from 2000 up until we hit that 2008 drop. And then it was volatile for a while. We had some, volatility in the market, some lower home prices, and now you see it's really kind of gone exactly the other way. And you see these prices, if you look at kind of that bottom tier, 50,000 to 100,000, we're almost to that 100,000 mark, and I bet you if we had new data for this quarter, we would be above that. Just showing you that kind of we're pricing that really lower affordable market out of the market. So the next one is Shelby sales data. So again, if we kind of look at that very bottom rung in that second tier, that 10 to 50 and 50 to 100, you can see there's quite a decline there in what was sold, and there's also a pretty big uptick in houses moving in Shelby. All right, so our opportunities for market rate development in the county. And this again is countywide. So senior housing, we have an aging population. We don't have necessarily places for them to go. The other benefit of senior housing is it gets folks out of maybe their single level home and creates starter homes availability for families. Condos and zero lot line developments, we don't have a lot of dense living. We can definitely use some more. We've typically built single family homes, but there is a need for that kind of development and a demand for it. Market rate rental housing, and the single family residential housing. So that could be a little cause for concern, but really what we're saying here is at scale, a developer is probably not going to come in and build an entire neighborhood, like 100 homes. At this point, it's just not cost effective for them to do so. There's not a return on investment with the cost of building in contrast to the cost of, or the return on their investment. So as prices continue to rise, that could change. But at this point, that's likely why we're not seeing development on a larger scale. There will still certainly be demand for one-off single-family residential houses. I'm going to build a house, or you're going to build a house, but not at scale. So next. Opportunities for attainable housing. So again, that's that middle tier, kind of your average Joe, regular working family. Duplex and triplex housing, especially with lower land costs. Rehabilitation of existing housing stock, that one's huge, and especially again as we talk about Shelby and kind of our aging housing stock. As I looked through kind of those census tracts, it had it broken down, and there's a really neat interactive map that I'll send you as well, where you can kind of click through the layers, but Shelby housing stock was between 1964 and, or no, I'm sorry, 1954 and 1969 is pretty much the median for all of the census tracts in Shelby. So rehabilitation of existing housing stock. Strategic use of land bank properties. They've torn down for the most part. There has been some rehabilitation, but perhaps we could do more of that as we move forward. And then filtering of existing housing stock, and that was again as we build some senior living and get those folks moved into different housing. And lastly, opportunities for affordable housing development. Units targeted for non-elderly adults. So we have built some senior housing. Actually, we're in the process of building some senior housing right now with the Area Agency on Aging. They're building their first dedicated units that they've done. But there is also a group of folks that need affordable housing that are neither disabled nor seniors, and they have kind of really been left out of the housing market. So there's an opportunity there. Strategic use of ARPA funds. Again, this took a year, so I think that ship has sailed. Affordable units outside of Mansfield. A lot of our affordable housing is concentrated in the city of Mansfield. And then investments in permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing. This kind of again goes back to those mobile homes, and as we see pressure on those parks to either upgrade and raise rents, it does cause an issue with some of that vulnerable population. So projecting housing needs. We went to 2032 and said, what is it going to look like in Richland County? How many units do we need to, based on what we saw in the census and what we anticipate our growth to be, what do we need? And we kind of went with the median here. So there was one tract that really said, you know, we might need X amount, and then there was a lower number, and we really kind of went with the median. The median tells us in the next 10 years we need 2,475 owner-occupied homes. We need 3,364 rental units for a total of 5,839 units. And that's not counting the loss of units that will continue to be vacated because they are no longer habitable or torn down and things like that. So that's a lot of units. And when we look at the permits slide and compare it to this, we are doing nowhere near that today. So we have some work to do. Additional considerations, there should be some click through. So this was what we were talking about, 1,700 housing units is how many we lost in that same time period, so over the last decade. So that would be maybe on top of this, if we can't rehab them. And then how can Richland County meet those housing needs? Well, we talked about that already. New construction, preservation, and bringing vacant units back online. And then just kind of a side caveat, projecting affordable housing needs. Again, we talked about that population, but 2,600 is our shortage of affordable rental units in 2032. And 47% of those units would be needed for like a one-bedroom, deeply affordable unit. Next slide. That's the same thing. Sorry about that. Keep going. Is it stuck?
No, it's going. What's the next slide?
Oh, yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Oh,
That's the same as the previous slide. I had taken it out, but I didn't. So funding and capacity for, so then we get to our strategy. So again, all that information is just data we had to collect because we wanted to make sure when we were talking to people who were going to be building housing or that we had the data behind us, but how do we take that and move it forward and build the kind of housing that we need to keep the residents that we have, attract new residents, etc. So the first strategy we had was around funding and capacity. So strategy one is promoting Richland County to outside developers. So we talked about we don't really have their attention. How do we do that? How do we get those developers to notice that we're here? And part of it was really just getting this study underway. We brought a lot of people together in the same rooms and conversations started, and there's already discussion between two of the kind of social agencies about how they can work together to develop. There was development happening that we were unaware of until we all got together in the same room. So some of that's happening organically. Since we've put the study out, Jodica and I have met with 2 separate developers that have interest in developing. So it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. But again, it's going to be building that capacity and finding the right partners. So it's got key action steps. Again, working across jurisdictions. We talked about building a website, exploring a housing coordinator position, and utilizing RFPs to promote development on sites that are appropriate to do so. Strategy 2 is building local capacity. That's funding and technical know-how, like we talked about. Some of that's work we need to do as the committee, as the steering committee, which everyone is committed to sticking to. So convening community conversations, look for local organizations, partner with out-of-town developers, and creating partnerships. And then strategy 3, identifying local and out-of-town capacity for neighborhood and downtown revitalization. Again, some of this we are doing right here in Shelby right now. But looking at it not just on our main street, but how do we take some of those neighborhoods that maybe are on the brink, and how do we stabilize those, and how do we offer programming to help them stabilize themselves as well. CRA is a big one. It's a tool we definitely have in our toolkit, and maybe it's something we can continue to promote. And then lastly, crafting policies that promote housing development. So strategy 4 is streamline permitting process and align across jurisdictions. So for those of you who aren't familiar, we did have, pre-COVID, a group that got together probably quarterly. It was Marilyn originally from the commissioner's office. Now it's Cliff and Barrett that convened the Joes of all the cities, all the zoning inspectors, the building departments. There were some developers in the mix, the health department, and we called it Build Richland eventually. It was originally very long and labor's name, but now it's Build Richland. And the goal of that group was to do this exactly, streamline the permitting process, align it a little bit, figure out what the pain points were, and move them forward. So through this study, we came to realize we still need to do that. And that group actually met last week. And they are working through some of those processes to try and just make it a user-friendly process for everyone. So that will be ongoing work that comes out of this as well. We can skip that, we just talked about it. Aligning and simplifying zoning across jurisdictions. So this came up multiple times, so we're on strategy 5. I will say Shelby got kudos in the main study as well as in our portion. We have some zoning that's more modern, I guess, than a lot of our counterparts, including some smaller lot size adjustments. So there has been some development in other cities, and there have been variances on every single one of them, which means if you're varying every opportunity that you have, maybe your zoning needs to change. So we're looking for opportunities to update zoning, and maybe that's something we partner across the county to do as well, and also to create common language. So there are some places that call something R1A, and it's R1 or R2, and another place. Can we just make that language common so it's easy for a developer to come in and build anywhere in Richland County and kind of know what they're getting into? That being said, cities have their own unique footprint and their own unique style, and we want to maintain that, just simplify the process. Modify zoning, promote attainable housing development. Again, this was looking at Shelby has some smaller lot size requirements in some areas. Most of the jurisdictions did not have that at all. There was no room for that. And certainly there are opportunities to look at updating zoning for more dense housing in different areas. And there were also some, for example, just landscaping that was over the top for maybe a 2-unit or a 4-unit that you would see for like a 100-unit apartment building. Are there ways we can make that simpler so that it's not so laborious? And then increasing availability of affordable and transitional housing, increasing opportunities for homeownership. We do have a relatively low cost of living here, although it is continuing to rise. promoting home ownership, rehabilitating the older housing stock or opportunities, making sure seniors have adequate housing so that their homes become available. So a lot of that's, again, getting those partners in the same room and seeing if there are ways that we can do that. And I will say, I took them all out to try and make this as brief as possible, but there are examples with every single one of these of different places who have done exactly what they're suggesting, how it worked, what it looked like, how the program worked, so we will be working through those. We're working to prioritize them now. Strategy 8, almost done. Expanding housing options for the unhoused and vulnerable populations. Again, there is an issue in Ohio, but specifically in Richland County. The rate of unhoused persons in Ohio has increased in recent years, and it's a challenge that we're all facing. We don't have enough rapid rehousing units or temporary housing units, and it leads to vagrancy. It leads to folks staying in vacant houses, and we've seen that here as well as other places. So that's a challenge to find funders and local organizations to help work through that process, crafting partnerships with local organizations and support housing development, and then building capacity to utilize state-level funding opportunities. Again, housing has certainly risen to the top of Ohio's priority list, so I anticipate there will be opportunities for funding, and if we can make sure we're aware of it, we can put our name in the air. So that was the housing study in a nutshell. And like I said, I will make sure you get these slides as well as copies of both the county report and all the notes. We still have, like I said, a lot of work to do. The steering committee has agreed that they will continue to meet, continue to push the strategies forward, and I will remain a part of that as long as it makes sense to do so. And then further, really, again, the goal of this for Shelby was we knew we needed development, and we needed to have some attention on development. And even just since we've started this, we've had conversations with folks who want to do some development in Shelby, and it's just opened up the door for that conversation. So again, thank you for the funding. I think having a strategy countywide, which we have not ever done before around housing, I think it's a step in the right direction, and truly we're capitalizing on it at the right time. It's a crisis across the state. We've already got the data that we need to move it forward, so thank you for that. Questions, comments?
Any questions or comments for Ms. Griffin? Mr. Gates?
Mayor, what was the percentage of rentals versus owner occupied in the city of Shelby?
Hold on, I have it. I know we talked about it by, we've talked about it by census tract, but let me see, I don't have it in here. I think it's
Was that specific to one census tract?
58%. 58.
But that was in one census tract? only?
58 was Shelby as a node overall. One census tract was 45. And then the rest were 70, 71, and 79.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I think I'll just speak on behalf of everyone. This has been money well invested, and thank you, council, for investing in this study. And again, we have the right person involved in the steering committee with Ms. Griffin. And I think over the last 6 months, we've been referring so many people to Ms. Griffin, and even in the unfinished version of this housing study, she's been able to give some vital information to some folks who have some ideas, right, Ms. Griffin, and we've been in private conversations with one developer we hope will turn into something very fruitful, and also the new developers of the former Lee Street trailer park came into our office last week. Talked to Mr. Geis and Mr. Ensman and I, and Ms. Griffin was out. But they came in looking for information, not only infrastructure and so forth, but what would fit us best in that area, and how can they develop that the most beneficial way for the city of Shelby. So naturally, it was a great segue to give them Jessica's card, and so this is going to be very, very helpful in going forward. So it was a great investment, and look forward to seeing profitable dividends in the near future. Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Appreciate it very much. Any further public comment? All right, hearing none. Move forward to reports from standing and special committees. Finance and Personnel Committee met Friday afternoon. Councilman Gates.
Mayor, thank you very much. Prior to the actual meeting of the Finance and Personnel Committee, representatives of the State Auditor's Office held an entrance conference. That gathering was off the record, just as anything involving the state audit is off the record until the time that the final audit is actually released. So, having said that, let's take a look at the combined financial statement. We're going to turn to the last page of that, where we have the income tax information. As of the end of March, the city had collected a little under $1.2 million. That's up just about 15% over the 3-year average. For the month of March, we collected $401,000. That's up 6.5% over the prior 3 years. Of course, income tax collection ended today, so I don't know if the finance director wants to chime in right now and add anything.
Mr.
We actually have it till tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, so the.
I guess Massachusetts.
Yes.
Patriots Day, yes, of course.
So while very busy, I don't have any totals yet for the period.
Well, we will await that information anxiously until next month. Let's look at page 2 at the bottom where we see the breakdown of individual, business, and withholding. Again, for 3 months, one ought to be careful about coming to any conclusions. The withholding is the closest thing to real time we have with income taxes, and you can see we had $872,000 collected for the first 3 months, and that's up 12% over the 3-year average. So we'll see, we'll have a better idea, obviously by the end of April. Probably by the end of May, we might even be able to make some predictions as to what's going to happen with income tax. We'll look at the front page where we see the numbers for all the funds. One thing that was noted is that first half property tax distribution was received on the 14th, last Friday, as a matter of fact. Those monies will benefit the general fund, park fund, health fund, and police and fire pension funds. So those are will be reflected in the April statement. And I can remember decades ago when it seemingly took forever to get distribution from the county. So the county has done much better in making distributions of taxes to all the subdivisions. And I know that school fiscal officers really appreciate that. But anyways, general fund had a little under, $1.2 million, or $2 million in cash at the end of March. Taking out the encumbrances, a little under $1.5 million. That's down $375,000 year to date in the cash compared to last year. As far as the other funds, the finance director didn't have much to offer till we got down to capital improvements. We have had in cash $448,000 in capital improvements, $431,000, $432,000 encumbered. The finance director asked the fire chief when he thought that the new rescue vehicle might arrive, and he thinks that the end of May is his safe prediction. So chunk of that encumbrance is for that, and so that will actually be expended. Looking at the utilities, the sewer fund is up $17,000 over last year in cash. The water fund is down $44,000 in cash compared to last year. The electric fund is up $286,000 in cash compared to last year. You can see what's in the police and fire pension. $93,000 in police pension, $78,000 in fire pension. We get down to hospitalization and $538,000. That's down about $25,000 in cash over last year, but certainly within the realm of comfort. On the next page, there at the top, the comparisons in revenues and expenditures this year and last. Down under 101 revenue, we see 241, the transfer deposit account. That is the return of monies from the water fund. My colleagues will recall we advanced money to the water fund last year, and that will be repaid in $5,000 monthly increments. Looking at expenditures of wages to see that we are up 10%. That's because we have 3 additional firefighters now we didn't have last year, and there were some retirement payouts. The next page, again, comparison, revenues and expenditures versus utilities. I'm not going to go over that. At this point, we'll look at the next page, the cash investment and reconciliation statement. If you look to see the monies that we have in PNC Bank, the finance director informed us that he is going to go to PNC and to the greatest extent he can to cash out those monies and to, in a hop, skip, and a jump, transfer those monies to U.S. Bank and then use those monies to open up accounts at Mechanics Bank. And that will be done yet this month. We'll still have some monies in PNC. I think perhaps as protection, if there are some monies that are received at or through PNC, there's a place for PNC to put them rather than to return the sender. We certainly would not want to have that. But the one thing I did not think to ask last week at our meeting is what is happening with interest rates. If the finance director can tell us, I know what the sign is out at the one bank that I do business at, and it's around 4%, so.
You know, I don't know what the most recent rate was. Several months ago, it was 4% for us, so I would imagine the Cedars are probably another % or so above that. But I will have an update on that very soon.
Thank you.
Well, we can see here on this, we have the investments at the top, we have the checking accounts down below. The total of the city treasury as of the end of March, $16,119,128.27. This little sort of Roush account is on the next page. We had some other issues that we talked about. I'm going to start at the bottom and work up. As far as personnel, Mary, you had nothing about specific people, but to mention that the health grant is on tonight's agenda. I see there was an additional handout here, so we'll discuss that when that legislation comes up. The fire chief was present at the committee. Concerns about monies for the department, and you know, one thing that's been bandied about is additional tax revenues to benefit some combination or permutation of safety forces. Traditionally, we think of safety forces, and rightly so, being police and fire. But under our city charter, the health department is part of the Department of Public Safety. So instead of many cities where it's just a bifurcated department, ours is trifurcated. I'm not sure if that's a word, but it is now. So at some point, the council needs to decide, and I'm going to suggest that we need to do this perhaps as a committee of the whole, and decide what it is that we want to do. We can raise revenues basically two ways. We can do it through a real estate taxes or through an income tax. The finance director shared this figure with us. If we wish to raise $500,000, that would take 3.8 mils of real estate taxes or an additional 0.25% of income tax. Now, the deadline to get anything on the November ballot is August 9th, so we have lots of time. We don't need to be feel like our back is against the wall, but I think that we should act deliberately on this, and perhaps the sooner the better. You know, one can make good arguments pro and con, I should say, whether to go the real estate route or go to the income tax route. But that's something that the five of us need to hash out with input, obviously, from the administration. The chief had other figures about the billing that is starting to trickle in, is what I wrote down, not what was expected. Talking about out-of-town transports and how those are very time-consuming. Obviously, they're essential, but they're very time-consuming. So again, it's a big issue. It's a complicated issue, and it's going to take all of us to decide just how we want to look at this. To add 3 additional people in the general fund and their pensions and their benefits is not something that this council member thinks is sustainable in the long term without additional revenues. You know, that's, you know, when you talk about additional revenues, that's the thing that electeds like to, run from. Some do, I shouldn't say all do, but some do. But nonetheless, we need to deal with this issue, and again, the sooner the better. So, perhaps even later this evening under miscellaneous business, we might pull out our calendars and decide when is a good time to meet as a committee of the whole. So those are my notes and everything that I have. If my colleague has anything to add to the meeting, please do. If the finance director does, please do.
Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Gates in regard to his report?
Mayor, I move that the combined financial statement and the cash investment reconciliation statement, both dated March 31st, 2023, be received, placed on file, and posted to the city website.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin that the combined financial statement and the cash investment reconciliation statement, both dated March 31st, 2023, be received, placed on file, and posted to the city website. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
That motion passes. Thank you, Councilman Gates.
Very, very well.
Next on the agenda, we have the Utilities and Streets Committee, Councilman Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. We met on Thursday, and the first order of business, we had representatives from Brightspeed came to talk to the committee about their proposed fiber broadband project within the city limits of Shelby. The people that were present from them was Josh Motzer, I believe is Director of Government Affairs, Justin Wooden, Senior Engineering and Construction Manager, and then joining us by phone was Evan Rednauer, Senior Engineer and Permitting and Joint Use. So Brightspeed acquired CenturyLink's internet and telephone business in October of 2022. And so they were there to disclose the upcoming fiber project for Shelby community. It is designed as an upgrade to the existing communication infrastructure. One concern that all of us were discussing was pole attachments, where we're going to put those lines. But they said that they're going to be doing what they call overlashing, basically using their existing attachments that CenturyLink already has, or the company formerly known as CenturyLink already had, and overlashing the fiber on those attachments, so there would be no additional attachments. The current joint use pole attachment agreement language is being reviewed, and so they're going to be seeking to revise that to list Brightspeed as the operating company licensee. The original agreement still lists a United Telephone Company as licensee, and that's had several assignments since 1982. They obviously in purchasing acquiring CenturyLink, acquired those rights as well. When we did the agreement with OmniFiber, there was a provision for franchising in the OmniFiber agreement. So I had brought up, are we going to get that added to the agreement? And so there's going to be further discussions along that line. We'll be going through that process. They did give us a general sense of the service they're going to be providing. Direct fiber to the home, very similar to what OmniFiber provides, and speeds up to able to eventually be able up to 10 gigabits per second. And they had mentioned some pricing, but not the full pricing. I don't know if they've quite hammered out all that. Anyways, they'll be rolling that out within the community. I did make very clear though that if they had information to give to our customers at the utilities office, that we would afford them the same accessibility that we did OmniFiber. Posting things, information they posted to the website. We did a couple other things to let people know of what was going on from a utility standpoint. So I did let them know we would be affording them the same courtesy, and of course, competition is a wonderful thing, and it's a beautiful thing. And so obviously we welcome this, as a third option. So we're like a gigabit city times like 3 now. Everyone's just rushing to provide us maximum speeds at very affordable rates. It's a miracle. People said it couldn't be done. Here we are. So, I'm just excited for next year when we have a fourth company that just wants to bless us with fiber all up and down. So, anyways, it's great, and more information I'm sure to come on that. But the biggest thing for us at City Council is going to be that pole attachment agreement. I'm sure the lawyers are going to lawyer, and then we'll figure it out. All right. We have a few easements that we need to work through. There's 2 easements are needed for the South Street Storm Sewer Project. That sewer replacement project is the existing storm sewer infrastructure has failed there. Street and property flooding occurs during heavy rain events. This is a project that was awarded the OPWC grant, and that grant allowance is 50%. And so the engineer's estimate's about 122. Our projected cost is 61 for that. So the project crosses 2 different properties before discharging stormwater to be run. So that legislation is before us this evening for those easements. We're also looking at easements for the Wareham Road storm sewer easement. We had had a full briefing on this ways back with all the, if you remember, with all the photos and stuff. So I'm not going to go too heavy into this, but essentially the project area for this encompasses 2 government territories, half controlled by the city, half controlled by Jackson Township.
The project easement area was incorporated into the city in 1979. It's limited and undersized stormwater management infrastructure was in place at the time. So we're going to be needing to update that. Engineering was not involved to calculate the required infrastructure needed to control the surface water. Anyways, so we're working on that one, and that easement will be, yes. Engineer's estimate for the project cost for this one is $42,500. That project cost will be shared 50% between both jurisdictional governments. So we're currently waiting on 3 quotes to confirm that project cost, and again, legislation before us this evening for that easement. So any questions on that, we can address at that time. All right. We do have upcoming legislation for a couple purchases. First, our fire hydrants. The service department needs to replace aging fire hydrants throughout the community. We've been working on this project. $64,000 was appropriated in the 2023 budget. 5 hydrants have been ordered. The delivery time for those is about 6 months. The expected cost is around $5,000 per hydrant. So we're going to be using the 502 fund for that purchase. We are looking to order an additional 6 hydrants from another supplier. The delivery timeline for that is also 6 months. The expected cost for that through the other supplier is around $4,000 per hydrant. So the price is expected to be around $1,000 less per hydrant, but of course raw material prices could alter that, or supply chain issues, or just general inflation. So until the check clears, on all this stuff. You guys know the drill. All right, so the total expected cost for all the hydrants is around $48,000. So that additional purchase will require council's authorization. The legislation is forthcoming soon. So, all right. Next on the list, the Ford F-450 cab and chassis. This has been a purchase that has been ongoing for around 3 years. So we're used to this by now. But we are seeking a public bid for the Ford F-450 cab and chassis. We're anticipating the cost to be around $61,000. That is up from 2021. Trying to look for the cost year real quick, and I'm not finding it. Anyways, it's an increase. The bid specs are being written to accommodate the dump body, because we need a 140-inch wheelbase for that, and legislation also forthcoming on that one. So these things are in motion. All right. An update on the Columbia Gas Infrastructure Upgrade Project in Ward 3. There's been a lot of OOPS notices, which is kind of ironic it's called that, but Ohio Utility Protection Service, it's called OOPS. But anyways, they're going to be doing the called the restoration of the street, alley, and sidewalk restorations, and so far we're pretty pleased with the restoration efforts they put forward. So nothing really more on that. And Mayor, as always, that's my report.
All right, thank you, Councilman Martin. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Martin in regard to his report? I hear none. Thank you very much. We'll move forward then to, actually, the Safety Committee did not meet.
Mayor, that is an error. The committee did meet. I
Oh.
have my notes.
Yes, sir. My apologies. Safety Committee met, and Councilman Gates took good notes, and we'll have a report from Councilman Gates.
We met on the 5th. Our chairman was suddenly taken ill and wasn't there, so I presided and took notes too. So let me just go through a few things. Under emergency management, we learned from the fire chief there's a tabletop drill in June which will involve the prisons. Excuse me, the city of Mansfield is taking the lead on this. That will be June 7th at the Longview Center. The fire department is offering a couple classes for firefighters. One is on basement fires. That will be done at Pioneer on the 21st of this month. The second one on May 6th is on forcible entry and fire tactics, and that will be at the fire department itself. The costs are covered by Mill Iron Auto Parts and Blue Scope Recycling. They have sadly at times been the beneficiaries of this kind of firefighting tactic, so I do appreciate that they are covering the cost of that. As I had mentioned earlier, the squad is due the end of April, but likely to be in May. Regarding the jail, jail inspection is scheduled for June 13th. Chief Combs said the big challenge is getting all the paperwork together. And that he also mentioned that the Shelby City Health Department is helping with CPR and first aid training for personnel at the police department. News from the health department, the Clean Up Shelby event is going to be June 8th, 9th, and 10th. There will be utility bill flyers. Surprisingly, a year in advance, we're getting information about the total eclipse that we will be in, so that people can prepare. And a big part of that is that people will know how they can safely view the eclipse. We will be, as I understand it, in the totality of the eclipse. So it will be dark. I think someplace like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I have a friend in Ashland who said the Ashland City Schools have already said they're going to be closed that day. Someone wondered why. I said, because it's going to be completely dark at the time that kids are getting out of school. We don't want to let kids out of school in complete darkness. So workforce development grant was mentioned. That's coming up here. We have legislation. Our nursing director is doing lots of CPR classes. I noticed a posting for a tobacco cessation class. There was a COVID outbreak in March at Crestwood with 9 cases, with a total throughout the district of 31 cases in March. STDs are down. Noted there was 1 case of Hep C, 3 cases of chlamydia, and 1 case of E. coli. The police chief mentioned that there is a person to whom, Mayor, you've offered a conditional offer of employment. This person is deployed overseas at the time, but he needs his continuing ed during this time. And he was sworn in via Zoom to the auxiliary. He has signed the paperwork, and evidently that was done on Zoom, and that will enable him to do his continuing ed while he is deployed in our nation's service. So that is a creative way for him to not lose his certification as a peace officer in the state of Ohio. So my thanks to everyone who put those puzzle pieces together and Chief Combs and brought that together. So, Mayor, that is my report.
Well, that was a most interesting report. Thank you, Councilman Gates,
Very
for
welcome.
stepping in. And did that evoke any comments or questions from anyone else? Mr.
Just wanted to thank Mr. Gates for taking that out for me. I did get very ill very quickly, and 2 days later I felt really good, so thank you for taking that up for me.
Glad to do it.
Wonderful, glad to do that. Mr. Geis.
I did attend, through EMA, they did have a seminar on the total eclipse. And it's not only not having kids exit when it's dark, but everywhere they've had this, there's a massive amount of influx of people. And they're predicting that they will be here. So they didn't want kids sitting in school buses and traffic jams and so forth. And they said, we need to prepare for this. Maybe even have the football stadium with restrooms and so forth. They said this will be a very big deal, so something maybe we ought to start talking more about. But to that point, I just wanted to offer that.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
Yes, it'll be a great influx of people. I already have people from like out west asking me if they can sleep in my basement, so they can experience the total eclipse, because they're not getting the totality. So, because we have a rarity, within a year, we'll have actually two different events. And they crisscross, they basically crisscross down into Texas, actually. So right down in Texas, there's a place, those people, they're going to experience both events in their form. But yeah, so the total eclipse is going to hit us. It's going to be interesting.
Very well, so we're plan ahead. All right. Well, now we make our way to reports of city officials. Under my report, and knowing the length of the meeting, I really am not going to bring a report this evening, except for the motion to request a liquor hearing. So if someone wants to take that motion up, that would be under my report.
I move to request a liquor hearing for Family Dollar Stores of Ohio, LLC, doing business as Family Dollar Store, 27925 at 17 Mansfield Avenue.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts to request a liquor hearing for Family Dollar Stores of Ohio, LLC, doing business as Family Dollar Store at 27925, 17 Mansfield Avenue. Discussion. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, the notice that we have says they are filing for a C1 and C2 license, both new. My understanding is that the quotas for carryout licenses in Shelby are full. I didn't have an opportunity to go on the state's website, which is becoming increasingly more difficult to navigate as an aside, but if the quota is full, which I believe it is, they have to stand and wait.
I don't know they're willing to do that. Thank you for that input.
Well, the other alternative is to buy someone else's license, and those are very pricey to buy.
Thank you for that information. Any other comment on this motion to request a hearing? I'll take a roll call vote.
Mr. Martin?
Nay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
What did you say this morning? McLaughlin,
Yeah.
you want to request a hearing? All right, he voted
Nay,
nay.
no,
Okay.
Just as a
Moving on.
point of order, one should not debate a member who is casting a vote.
Well received.
I went the wrong way. Nay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Nay.
Mr. Gates?
Nay.
Motion to request a liquor hearing fails. This,
Mayor, if I may explain. If someone casts a roll call vote and they wish to change it, the rules allow them to change the vote before the presiding officer announces the outcome.
very good. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from me regarding my report? All right. Go to Mr. Crum, our Director of Finance.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gates really covered all of the excitement from my office. Just one last reminder, tomorrow is tax day. Please either bring in your documents or postmark them by tomorrow to either file your return or file an extension. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Mr. Crum? Thank you, sir. Move forward to Mr. Ister, Law Director.
Mayor, I'll follow your lead and see if we can offer no report.
Thank you. Mr. Geis, Project Coordinator.
Thank you, Mayor. You'll remember earlier in the year, the council passed the resolution for spending of the sidewalk fund. So we're traditionally in the past, and we'll look to do that this year, is start taking applications on May 1st. So I will have those on the website later on this week. We did say it'd become first come, first served on May 1st. I've already been getting phone calls from the articles and the various news outlets and so forth. So I think this year will be very successful. So hopefully we can help quite a few people out. We did sign our contracts for the paving project, and just, when Mr. Mark was talking earlier about another gig opportunity or whatever, but Verizon did apply for 5G on the tower out at the football fields where there's it now. I don't know what the extent of that is, but I know my brother-in-law was just in from Orange County, California. He has no internet service coming to his house. Everything goes right to the tower. Now, the tower's right across the way from where he lives. I don't understand all that technology yet, but all of his devices go straight to the tower and not anything that comes into his home. So I did respond to them and I said, is this the true 5G? And they said yes, so we'll see. Next thing is just a reminder of our paving levy. It'll be on May 2nd. I know we'll have a meeting that before, so we do have signs if anyone would like one. Just come and see me and we'll take care of that. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Geis. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Geis in regard to his report? Hearing none, we'll move forward then to new business. Is there any new business to be brought before council this evening? Hearing none, move forward then to unfinished business, labor consultants. RFQs have been sent out, expect to receive them back on the 28th of this month, and we'll review those and see which direction we're going to move at that point, but so it's in process. Any other unfinished business? All right, let's go to legislation.
Ordinance number 12, 2023, repealing chapter 289 floodplain management commission of the codified ordinances of the city of Shelby.
Move for second reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Robb for the second reading of ordinance number 12, 2023. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Ordinance number 12, 2023 passes its second reading.
Ordinance number 13, 2023, correcting an error on the Shelby zoning districts map and declaring an emergency.
Mayor, I move that the rule requiring that an ordinance be read on 3 separate occasions be suspended.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts that the rule requiring that an ordinance be read on 3 separate occasions be suspended. Discussion. Mr. Martin?
Was the reason for the emergency?
Mr. Gates? The reason for the emergency, or Mr. Gates?
Well, it's explained, I think, in the whereas paragraphs, particularly the second whereas paragraph. There's some movement on the sale of the IGA store, and this error in the zoning map is stopping that process completely.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to suspend the rule? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
That motion passes.
Mayor, I move that the ordinance be taken up passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts for the passage of ordinance number 13, 2023. Discussion. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, this has happened, I know, 2 times I can think of. One involved the Lacer property back behind the stadium on South Gamble Street. When Sandy Lacer went to sell her house, found out it was in the, I think, Central Business District, when it should have been in residential, and the mortgage company just said, no, forget it, so we needed to correct it. The other one involved Pioneer School, and when Pioneer was going through the process when rebuilding the school from the inside out and went to get a zoning permit, Mr. Curran, who was the zoning inspector at the time, said, nope, you can't have a school in a heavy industrial area. Long story short, we corrected the zoning map. It was a 30-acre correction, so it was easy to do. It was certainly not spot zoning. But have a similar situation here. You can look at the back and you can see as is identified in the, on this map, a particular permanent parcel that is included in residential in error when it should be in the highway business district. So that's what we're here to correct. And we have it up in full living color on the map. So if you can't see in black and white, there it is in color. I don't know if Mr. Geis could even click on that and highlight it.
There you go.
There you can see it, and you can see that the building is very clearly on that parcel. That parcel is a portion of 3 lots. So that's what we're here to correct.
Very good. Any further discussion? Mr. Martin?
Just for historical, so I'm assuming then that the addition, it says 1987, right? So, but the addition, when they must have done an addition and went over into that, is that what happened?
Mr. Geis?
The business owner at the time purchased both of these, or all of the properties here, and then cut the backyards off so he could have more room to build the additional stuff that would happen. But the zoning never got changed. Actually, the zoning came in after this was all done, and they went through the old lot lines is basically what happened, instead of the new here.
Well, you can kind of see the old building running parallel over there in the upper left there. Right there, see the old building? You can kind of see where it cut across, right across that line. And so, yeah, you can kind of see where that is. Anyways, I was interested in the history of it, and I can see exactly what they're thinking.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Ordinance number 13, 2023 passes.
Resolution number 17, 2023, authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Service to acquire rights of easement for the South Street Storm Sewer Project.
Move the resolution be taken up and passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin for the passage of resolution 17, 2023. Discussion? Mr. Geis?
This is the area that we haven't even questioned is up here. What's wrong? The existing storm line comes right next to this house here. They, the homeowner actually preferred that it stay that way, and I don't know that an easement was ever recorded for that. And the existing line then goes all the way down this alleyway into the To-Be Run. When the engineer and the surveyor were out looking at this to try to make this go down through there, there's a very high pressure gas main. This building's real close and everything, so he just didn't think that he could keep it inside that alleyway. And the homeowner, we had a discussion with the homeowner, but you can see it on the plat there, about coming over and going down through his backyard and then into there. This area is all floodplain and really not very useful for him, so he was very much on board with that, and that's what the easements are for them.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin? Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Resolution 17, 2023 passes.
Resolution number 18, 2023, authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Service to acquire rights of easement for the Wareham Road Storm Sewer Project.
Move the resolution be taken up and passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. McLaughlin for the passage of resolution number 18, 2023. Discussion? Mr. Gates?
If you see on the actual plat and drawing, there's just a little area that we need on the west side of Wareham Road to get that culvert project through. On the other side, the way that right of way is out there, the improvements will stay in the right of way on the other side. It's in Jackson Township anyhow on that side, but this is what we need for Shelby.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yeah.
Resolution number 18, 2023 passes.
Resolution number 19, 2023, authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Service to enter into an agreement with Centec Systems LLC for technology services for the city of Shelby and declaring an emergency.
Move the resolution be taken up and passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin for the passage of resolution number 19, 2023. Discussion. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I'm pleased to see the section that I objected to at the last meeting deleted from this version. I'll note that there is no section 9. I don't know if that goes right from section 8 to section 10. That's no big skin off my nose. I don't know if there should be some notation there. As I look at the law director, there should be a notation that section 9 is not there. No skin off my nose.
It reads plainly. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Resolution number 19, 2023 passes.
Resolution number 20, 2023, authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Safety of the city of Shelby to apply for the 2023 Workforce Development Grants, WF 23.
Move the resolution be taken up and passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Gates for the passage of resolution number 20, 2023. Discussion? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, would you explain this for the record?
Sure, I'm sure we will. This is similar, I have in hand the grant, the workforce grant 22, which commenced September the 1st, 2021, and will conclude on June 30th, 2023. And that grant was for $180,000 for the duration of that particular grant. This is something similar from the CDC grant guidance themselves. One paragraph kind of explains it, that this grant is designed to support strategically strengthening public health infrastructure and systems related to the workforce and foundational capabilities. So we believe that this grant, which is a larger grant and a longer running grant, as you see, I think some 53 months, will allow us to leverage our levy dollars, strengthening the workforce. This enabled us to bring Jennifer Frazier along and as the actually the administrative professional and support person, and she's done a wonderful job, certainly instrumental in us attaining our accreditation, and we'll need someone in that position to help us apply and receive our reaccreditation. So you can see the lion's share of this particular grant. This one will go to that position over that 53 months. Any other discussion? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I'm looking at the legislation itself, and I believe section 2 has an error. I believe in that middle line, instead of the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, it should read Ohio Department of Health.
Yes.
Mayor, I see unanimous consent that section 2 in the resolution that in the second line, the phrase Ohio Environmental Protection Agency be replaced with Ohio Department of Health.
All right. I think everyone has heard plainly, the correction being made by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? If not, that correction will be made to that specification. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin? Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts? Mr. Gates?
Yeah.
Resolution number 20, 2023 passes.
Resolution number 21, 2023, authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Safety to enter into an agreement with the Richland County Commissioners for the payment of legal counsel fees for indigents and declaring an emergency.
Move resolution, take it up and pass.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Martin for the passage of resolution number 21, 2023. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yeah.
Mr. Rob?
Yeah.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yeah.
Resolution number 21, 2023 passes. Now come to miscellaneous business. Is there any miscellaneous business to be brought before council? Mr. Rob?
I'll be leaving town in the morning. I'll be gone for approximately a week. I can be reached by phone or by email.
Mr. McLaughlin?
I was wondering if Mr. Gates wanted for all of us to schedule the next committee of whole.
Mr. Gates?
If we're able to. Mayor, I'll be absent from the city on the week of May 8th. I'll just toss out as a suggestion, it might be just as easy to do this prior to, the council meeting either on May 1st or on May 15th. We're gonna be here anyway. We can roll in here at 6 o'clock, easier than we can roll in here any other time on any other day.
Agreed, works for me. I prefer sooner rather than later. These things just have a way of, so if May 1st suits council, that would be very agreeable with me. Everyone all right? 6 o'clock? All right, we'll send, have Ms. Gunder send that out for all you calendar votes. May 1, 6 o'clock. Council of the whole. Or I'll have the clerk of council send it out. How does that sound?
Yeah.
All right, well, that'll be easy. Thank you for that. And the other miscellaneous business, Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I look on my calendar and I see that a week from Wednesday, the 26th, is Administrative Professionals Day. And so, Mayor, that's a reminder of the cards and flowers.
You saw my eyebrows.
But in all seriousness, there are many people in government, in business, in schools, and wherever that are behind the scenes doing those day-to-day things that keep everything running as smoothly as it possibly can. And we give them but one day a year. They deserve much more. I always want to be careful not to speak for my colleagues, but I think I safely can when I thank all the administrative professionals who work for the city of Shelby and quite honestly make our jobs much easier.
Hearty amen to that. And thank you for that reminder. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I move council adjourned.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin for adjournment. Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Okay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts? Mr. Gates?
Council adjourns at 8:28.
Um,